Hello, listeners, and welcome to this week's recording of Boomerang Team. The team today is made up of myself, Margaret, Peter, Marcia, Jessica, and our engineer, Ray. The news this week is taken with permission from the West Lothian Courier, dated the 3rd of October. As usual, the news will be broken into parts, and can I remind you that when you've listened to the whole recording, please post your wallet back to us from a post box and not the post office. And now we will start with part 1. And this is a headline story from the Courier. Kind and caring organ donor. My son's death saved 3 lives. Mum's pride after tragedy. And this is an article by Debbie Hall. A sorely missed young man who died after a tragic accident saved the lives of 3 people through organ donation. Robbie Campbell, aged 30, from Bathgate, passed away last year after a sudden fall. He suffered a brain bleed and tragically never regained consciousness. However, Robbie had already registered as an organ donor, which meant he was able to give the gift of life to 3 other people. His mum, Lynn, told the Courier, 3 people are still alive because of my son, and I feel so proud of Robbie for saving these lives. Now his devastated mother, Lynn, aged 55, is calling on families to talk about organ donation and the issue in honour of her kind son. Lynn said, 3 people are still alive because of my son, and I feel so proud of Robbie for saving their lives. Robbie was the most kind and caring person I've ever known. He would always buy me really thoughtful gifts for birthdays and Christmas, and people often said to me that everyone needs a Robbie in their life. He was such an active guy, always running and golfing, and he had a real zest for life. He was football mad and was a loyal supporter of Scotland and Falkirk football teams. He had watched their matches all over the world with the whole family. Robbie was rushed to the Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh Hospital after his fall, but the medical teams confirmed that there was no brain activity. Despite the devastating loss of their son, Robbie's family was informed that he had registered as an organ donor and could potentially be a match for patients on the transplant waiting list. Specialist nurses supported Robbie's family as transplant teams identified 3 patients in urgent need of a transplant, whose lives were saved by Robbie's heart and kidneys. 1 year on, Lynn, a director of a recruitment company and mum of 2, is still struggling to come to terms with the death of her son and is considering setting up a charity to support grieving families. After Robbie passed, my husband and I went to Loch Lomond for a break, she said. When he asked for the bill, the waiter said our son had already paid for it. Robbie knew we were going before he died and wanted to treat us. That's the kind of person he was, and I want to honour his kindness by helping other families. We were so grateful to receive so much support from Robbie's colleagues, friends and family, but there are families out there who don't have the same level of support. I recently gave a talk to families at the Order of St John's Awards in Glasgow, and I wanted them to know that I've been where you are and that things do get better. This year marks the 30th anniversary of the NHS organ donor registration, with over 571,000 people in Lothian, approximately 63% of the population registered as organ donors. Lynn is urging others to consider what organs they would be happy to donate and to ensure that this decision is recorded on the organ donor register and shared with their family. She added, every day I feel like I wake up in a nightmare, but then I remember that Robbie's heart still beats in someone else, and that brings me so much comfort. I would really encourage everyone to register their organ donor selections online and to speak to their loved ones about this decision. James Powell, Associate Medical Director, Surgical Services, Royal Infirmary of Edinburgh, and Consultant Transplant Surgeon, NHS Lothian. Although we have an opt-out policy, it is vital for individuals to make their wishes clear and have those conversations with their families. Robbie's decision to join the organ donor register is a powerful reminder of the positive impact one person can have and how important it is to discuss organ donation with loved ones. For details about organ donation and to register your decision, visit organnationscotland.org. And there's photos of Robbie with his mum and dad and his sister Fiona. And there's a lovely photo of him, the family in the front of the courier too. And now over to Peter.
School janitor scoops 183,000 lotto win. A West Lothian school caretaker is planning to take early retirement after scooping more than £180,000 on the Euro Millions. And John McDowell, 53, from Bathgate, has already pledged to get his brother a passport for his first holiday abroad and will also help his daughters get on the property ladder. The dad of 3, who won £183,000 on September the 6th, wants to retire by the time he's 60 and help his mother get a new kitchen and, as a treat for himself, buy a new car. Mr McDowell is a carer for his father and woke him up to tell him the news after seeing the life-changing email. He booked a holiday for Egypt at Christmas to take his brother abroad for the first time, who has started the process of getting a passport. John said, "I absolutely love my job, but winning this money will mean I get to retire that little bit earlier and put my feet up sooner. I can't wait to treat my family. My brother has never been abroad before, so the first thing I wanted to do was book a holiday somewhere hot and sunny for us both. I asked him whether he fancied spending Christmas in Egypt, as it would be nice to spend some time swapping the cold Scottish weather for somewhere warm at that time of year. He agreed, so I told him to get a passport ordered. It will be a really special holiday. I have been wanting to get myself a new car for a while, but I've been putting it off. But I'll definitely be shopping for one soon. I like to travel up north to get away from it all, so I'd love to get an SUV-style car, maybe a Kia Sportage, to help me explore. I would also like to help my daughters plan for their futures, so I'll now also be able to help them get on the property ladder when the time's right." John described the feeling of winning as surreal after 3 years of buying lottery tickets. He matched the 5 main numbers and one lucky star number in the Euro Millions draw on September 6. The winning numbers from that draw were 12, 14, 34, 41, 47, and the lucky star numbers were 3 and 4. Mr McDowell said, "On the night I won, I was just about to go to bed and had a quick look at my phone and saw an email from the National Lottery. I was going to ignore it as I thought it would be nothing, but curiosity got the better of me, and I had a look and realised it said I had matched 5 main numbers and one lucky star. Everyone in the house was in bed, so I made myself a cup of tea before telling anyone. I then woke my dad up to tell him, and he didn't understand at first. He thought I was joking. It's so surreal, I still can't believe it." And alongside the article is a picture of John in clear celebratory mood. And over to Marshall.
Police probe after body of man is found in lane. Police were continuing to investigate the unexplained death of a man in Livingston this week. At around 2 a.m. last Thursday, officers were called to a report of concern from a man in Bankton Lane, Muirston. Emergency services attended and a 50-year-old man was pronounced dead at the scene. Officers remained in attendance at Bankton Lane and Bankton Glade, and the surrounding footpaths were still closed on Tuesday night. Members of the public were asked to avoid the area and seek alternative routes. Following a post-mortem examination, the man's death is being treated as unexplained. Inquiries are ongoing to establish if there has been any criminality surrounding the circumstances. Detective Chief Inspector Jonathan Pleasance said, "It is vital we get the correct answers for the man's family, and officers are continuing to carry out thorough inquiries to do this. The family continue to be supported by specialist officers at this difficult time. We will have a continued police presence in the area, and anyone with concerns or questions is encouraged to approach these officers. We are also asking that anyone who saw or heard something unusual between midnight and 2 a.m. on the Bankton Lane area to contact us as soon as possible. If you have private CCTV, doorbell or dash cam footage which might have captured anything, we ask that you check this to assist in our inquiries. Anyone with information is asked to call Police Scotland via 101 quoting incident number 0278 of 26th September. And over to Jessica.
First residents get a warm welcome at new care home. Almond Valley has a cinema and a nail bar. West Lothian's newest care facility was delighted to open its doors and welcome its very first residents to their new home, which boasts a cinema and nail salon. Built on the site of the former Club Earth nightclub, Almond Valley Care Home in Livingston offers a lifestyle that provides companionship, stimulation and choice. Residents will be able to relax in their brand new purpose-built luxury care home that has been designed with them in mind and provides a warm and homely environment to live a fulfilled life. Residents can immediately feel at home in their beautiful ensuite bedrooms, with many benefiting from direct garden access and their own private patio area, as well as offering homely dining rooms, lounges and quiet rooms where residents can choose to enjoy the company of others. The facilities extend beyond to support the overall well-being of its residents with an on-site hairdressers and nail salon, state-of-the-art cinema room, cafe where friends and families can pop in for a cuppa and slice of home-baked cake, a private dining room where special occasions can be celebrated surrounded by their loved ones, and not forgetting the balconies and beautiful gardens to while away an hour or two. The kind, caring and experienced team are on hand to provide support and reassurance, as well as being able to meet any medical needs with an experienced team of nurses and care staff. Loved ones can rest in the knowledge that support is provided around the clock and that should care needs change, the dedicated care can continue to support. Maggie Allison, the home manager, commented, "I am so delighted that we have opened and myself and the team cannot wait to welcome residents to their beautiful new home as they embark on their next chapter. The home is undeniably stunning whilst offering a really warm and homely feel where residents, friends and families are welcome to pop in any time and to be a part of our Almond Valley family. The local community have been so welcoming and we cannot wait to build our links to enable our residents to keep on doing everything that they enjoy, as well as having the opportunity to try their hand at something new. It's a really exciting era for the Almond Valley Care Home." To accompany this article, there's two photographs, one of the home itself, which looks very smart and modern. I think it's 2 or 3 stories. And the other one is on the moving day when staff were on hand to make sure that the big day was one to remember for the new residents. And there's a lovely picture of the residents, their families, the staff, nurses, and also a very attractive balloon display for the care home, which balloons in all shapes and sizes, all blue, different shades of blue. So the people there look really happy to have found a nice home. And
winter plans are approved. An article by Debbie Hall. A plan to help West Lothians stay moving this winter has been approved. Around £2.5 million is available to deliver the 2024-25 winter service, with a further £168,000 available if required through the Winter Resilience Fund. Under the plan, which was approved by the Council's executive at their meeting on Tuesday, October the 2nd, a minimum of 30,000 tonnes of salt will be available to treat West Lothian's network, which consists of around 1,000 kilometres of roads and over 1,300 kilometres of footways. 2 dedicated crews will be in place to help replenish over 2,000 grit bins across the council area during the winter period. A total of 25 self-help points where residents can collect salt supplies will also continue. The plan covers the priority system used to treat roads and footways during winter conditions, with the primary carriageway routes being treated 24 hours per day as required. Visit westlothian.gov.uk/winter. And over to Peter.
Volunteer charity vows to help under threat community centres. West Lothian's voluntary sector Gateway has vowed to work with council to find solutions for the 38 community centres and village halls potentially facing closure. Alan McCloskey, the CEO of the Gateway, which speaks for the voluntary sector in the county, told councillors that a meeting would take place this week with the Joint Forum of Community Councils to look at a way ahead for the centres. Whilst it is acknowledged that there may be some centres which are capable of striking out on their own with full-time management committees taking control of centres through the community asset transfer process, there are many more facing uncertainty. Management committees of community centres have been asked to consider options for the future, including taking on ownership of buildings and a plan to save £1 million. Other options include taking a full repairing and insuring lease or accepting all charges being billed from the council. Mr McCloskey told a meeting of the Economy, Community Empowerment and Wealth Building Policy Development and Scrutiny Panel, otherwise known as the PDSP, that earlier sight of the proposals before June would have been useful in looking at alternatives. He added that after meeting with the Joint Forum, we want to have constructive dialogue with the council on what the options would be. We want to come back to the council with some alternative options. In his report to the PDSP, the Chief Executive Officer said there is growing community concern about the implications of the Council's community care and partnership centre, the community centre and partnership centre review. Many of the centres are run by management committees, run by volunteers, and they are the lifeblood of community and social cohesion. There is real concern that these centres will close in the coming months. They face the impossible task of taking on the running costs of operating these facilities with limited knowledge of how to do so and no money. Many groups have indicated they will simply be unable to take on these roles. A lot of the groups run multi-purpose events and host groups that meet regularly, for example, art groups, activity classes, Girl Guides, etc. These groups are often the lifeblood of communities and without anywhere to go. Many individuals and groups will be left isolated and disconnected. There is no central management committee structure, so VSGWL has met with reps from the Joint Forum of Community Councils to discuss running a publicity campaign to explore options. And back to Marsha.
Please don't close down our nursery. Parents plea for early learning centre. Parents with kids are at an under-threat nursery are pleading with West Lothian Council not to shut it down. Linlithgow Bridge Nursery is among 9 early learning settings earmarked for closure by West Lothian Council. Although the local authority has stressed no decision has been made, consultations are being held to determine if the council-run nurseries are economically viable. Linlithgow mum Katie Edwards is among parents who fighting the proposals tooth and nail. Her kids Sky 7 and Robin 4 had benefited from a caring and nurturing environment at the nursery, and she'd hoped for the same experience for her 10-month-old daughter Evelyn. She says the arguments for closing the nursery don't stack up and fears such a move would put Linlithgow Bridge Primary in a vulnerable position. She told the Courier, "My eldest two went to the nursery and absolutely loved it. During COVID, we saw how they coped and nurtured under really extreme circumstances. I don't think the council's financial reasons for making sense, and the numbers just don't add up. It's also not right that there isn't demand for the nursery. The council has forecast from their own numbers that the demand isn't really falling. Looking back to 2019, certainly numbers have fallen, but since then, it's been announced childcare places are being expanded, so we know by the end of 2026 there will be places for 2-year-olds, and so the capacity problem goes away. If anything, this will cost council money. The only savings they claim to make is through staffing, but at the same time they're saying they won't make anyone redundant. They'll terminate temporary contracts, but that's job losses just the same. When you look at the funding model also, they'd actually have to employ more staff if they're moving everyone from Linlithgow Bridge to Linlithgow Primary, because they won't actually have enough staff. It would actually cost them around £40,000 more to have one big nursery than two smaller nurseries. Katie continued, "It all just feels very rushed and that they want to make the headline figures look good. But their reasoning behind it all just isn't there. If they put all the kids into one nursery in Linlithgow, education standards are only going to go down because you have an extra 80 kids per session being stuck in one big room. I don't know how many adults who would cope with 80 children in one big playground, let alone the children." Executive Council for Education, Andrew Maguire, said, "Plans to close 9 nurseries have not been approved, but the Education Executive has approved plans to begin consultation with parents and stakeholders on the planned reduction of 9 nursery and early learning buildings, given the high number of surplus spaces within council nurseries. The proposed changes would see a community-based approach to nursery provision being put in place." Leader of the council, Lawrence Fitzpatrick, said, "Councils receive 80% of our funding from the Scottish Government, so we have no choice but to reduce spending and reduce some services. This is a clear example where we can continue to deliver important services but also work much more efficiently. I appreciate some parents will not want to have their local nursery close, but the council, like all councils, need to change the way in which services are delivered, and it is only right officers look at options to address the fact that we have 30% more nursery space than is needed to meet demand." And there's a picture of Katie and her 3 children on the settee looking rather disappointed. And over to Jessica.
Councillors debate state of our roads, an article by Stuart Somerville. More money is needed for road repairs in West Lothian, as a councillor hit out at the Transport Secretary, saying she didn't have to worry about potholes using a ministerial limo. West Lothian Council is to write to local MSP Fiona Hislop asking for more funding to carry out essential road repairs. Supporting a plea by the Deputy Provost Peter Heggie, fellow Tory Alison Adamson urged better funding for the council, who knew best how to spend on repairing local roads. An SNP amendment urged the council to look to successes in neighbouring Midlothian and to spend the budget better. Councillor Heggie told a meeting of the full council that road teams did exceptional work with the limited budget they have to operate on. He said the real problem was the mismanagement of Holyrood budgets, where the Scottish Government was more interested in spending on vanity projects such as foreign embassies. And he went on, "It's quite concerning when you see statistics like 105 inquiries for road defects per week. We are at a hub of business, industry and education. The condition of the roads has to be safe and acceptable. As we head towards colder and frosty days, I am very concerned about the ongoing deterioration of our carriageways. I would instruct the Chief Executive to write to Fiona Hislop, SNP, the Cabinet Secretary for Transport, to ask when West Lothian Council will receive proper funding to repair and maintain our vital road network." Councillor Adamson said, "The Transport Secretary doesn't need to worry about potholes in her ministerial limo, but if she gives West Lothian Council the funding, we can get our roads into a better state, which will save money in the longer term. West Lothian Council knows better where to spend this money." Tabling her amendment, Councillor Diane Calder highlighted a £371,000 underspend by roads and transportation and requested an emergency report on contingency plans for all unforeseen council underspends. "We are spending money repairing when we should be investing," added Councillor Calder, pointing to a pothole repair machine dubbed the Terminator, which has been used successfully in Midlothian. "West Lothian should look to replicate good practice and spend its budgets better," she suggested. Fellow SNP councillors also referenced the success of the machine, and the Deputy Group Leader, Pauline Stafford, said the machine, which was breaking all records when it came to fixing potholes, costs £165,000. And she also said, "We have got an underspend of £371,000. We could buy 2 and rent them out to other local authorities." And back to Margaret.
And that brings us to the end of part 1. Welcome back to part 2. And Heather has joined us. Thank you, Heather. Firstly, we'll have intimations and then general news. Intimations. Bain, Karen Lee, peacefully on Tuesday the 24th of September at the Marie Curie Hospice, Edinburgh, with her loving family by her side. Karen, a dear friend to many, will be sadly missed by all who knew and loved her. Funeral service to take place on Thursday the 10th of October at 10:15 a.m. at St. Peter's Catholic Church, thereafter on to West Lothian Crematorium for 12 p.m. Donations in need of Marie Curie Hospice, Edinburgh. Family flowers only, please. Erskine Debbie, born 11/11/1957, passed away the 24th of September 2024. Unexpectedly, with her loving family by her side on Tuesday the 24th of September 2024, Debbie, aged 66 years, dearly loved and loving wife to Owen, best friend and loving mum to Steph, beloved daughter to Jean and Andrew, a much-loved granny, Deb's step-mum and friend to many. Debbie's funeral service will take place at West Lothian Crematorium on Saturday the 5th of October at 12 a.m. Please wear a splash of pink. And now on to general news. Win a £25 gift card to spend at the centre. This is an article by Debbie Hall. It's easy to enter our great contest. The Centre Livingston is one of Scotland's largest shopping centres. It's a fantastic place to spend a day out with friends and family. When it comes to refuelling during your shopping trip, there's a great mix of cafes to choose from, including Costa, Muffin Break and Watterson's, where you can pick up a new book and flick through the first few pages with a coffee and cake. If you're planning to mark National Dessert Day on October the 14th, the choice is endless when it comes to taking time out and enjoying a well-deserved treat. At Wagamama, there's everything from a scrumptious lemon tart with a berry compote, topped with a sprig of mint, to banana and crispy panko breadcrumbs, served with its scoop of salted caramel ice cream and a chilli, toffee and ginger sauce. To celebrate the National Day, the Centre Livingston is giving one lucky reader the chance to win a £25 gift card to treat themselves, which can be redeemed in over 90 stores and all restaurants. To enter, send your answers to the competition question to Debbie Hall at reachplc.com. And the question is, when is National Dessert Day? And over to Peter.
5K naked run mum is inspiration. A West Lothian mum has said running 5K with no clothes on was like running with her own castanets. Inspiring Dawn Roden from West Lothian fell in love with running back in 2018 when she joined a local park run. She progressed from walking the route to routinely finishing with a huge grin on her face. Now, after completing a lengthy run in the start naked, the 53-year-old has been nominated for Achiever of the Year at the Jog Scotland Awards. On receiving her nomination, Dawn said, "I can't believe anyone would nominate me, let alone be a finalist. I am lost for words, and that's just not like me." Jog Scotland said it was clear that nothing, not even clothing, could slow down Dawn's enthusiasm and joy for life. A spokesperson for the organisation added, "Dawn Roden, an inspirational member of the Longridge Jog Scotland community, is a runner who proves that nothing, not even clothing, can slow down her enthusiasm and joy for life." This has been recognised with a nomination for the prestigious Achiever of the Year award at the upcoming Jog Scotland Awards 2024. The Jog Scotland Awards celebrate individuals and groups who embody the spirit of the organisation, which promotes fitness, well-being and inclusivity through running. The Achiever of the Year category shines a spotlight on participants who have demonstrated outstanding personal achievement, overcoming obstacles and showing dedication to their own health and well-being. Dawn became a motivational member of the Longridge Jog Scotland group, always encouraging and smiling while taking it at her own pace. Jog Scotland added, "She will admit she isn't fast, describing herself as a plodder, but she has a determination to just keep going. Having done a half marathon this year, she wanted a new challenge and decided to take part in a naked 5 kilometre as a sponsorship opportunity to raise money for the group. Taking place at an organised event in London in May, Dawn ran 5k naked, apart from trainers. Talking about the event afterwards, she said, "Who knew naked bodies running were so noisy? It was like running accompanied by my own castanets." Whether she wins the award or not, Dawn has no plans to stop and has signed up for the Glen Ogle 33 ultramarathon, though she has vowed to keep her clothes on for this one. And back to Marcia.
Church Holiday Club was the place, that's PLAICE, to be as it celebrated 10th anniversary by Debbie Hall. The summer holidays saw the West Kirk and Polbeth Harwood churches celebrate their 10th holiday club. The popular club for children of primary school age is held every year in Polbeth Harwood Church. The organisers said it was a delight to welcome lots of new children and to also welcome back some familiar faces. A spokesperson said, "It really was a week to remember, with a record of 74 children joining us for an action-packed week and some great adventures at Rocky's Place, our fish and chip shop. With Bible stories, slapstick comedy, and in the daily drama, outdoor games and fun, crafts, food decoration and messy challenges, a great time was had by all. It takes a great deal of planning and a great team of adult volunteers to run such an event, and with a team of just over 40 helpers, which included 14 youth helpers aged between 13 and 18, this made for a great combination of youth and experience. Many new friendships were bonded between adults, children, parents and carers. In a time when we hear so much worrying news about closures of churches in Scotland, at the moment it is great to be sharing some really positive news of events taking place in our local churches. We would also like to extend our most sincere thanks to everyone who supported us behind the scenes through time, donations and funding, allowing us to continue to run this club at no cost to the parents and carers, so no child is excluded due to cost. For more information on the Children's Club's events and services, check out www.westkirkpaulbethharwood.co.uk. And over to Jessica.
Charity expects huge demand for funding that is now available. An article by Debbie Hall. A mental health organisation in West Lothian expects to receive a huge demand for its grants. The West Lothian Voluntary Sector Gateway will receive £470,000 from Holyrood to fund community work and wellbeing projects. Previously, the organisation has seen enormous demand, receiving 68 applications seeking over £1.4 million from last year's £470,000 award. Alan McCluskey, the CEO of the Gateway, told councillors this week that the organisation expects demand to far outstrip the funding they receive. He said, "We expect the fund to be heavily oversubscribed, as it has in the past." A report to the Council's Economy, Community Empowerment and Wealth Building Policy Development and Scrutiny Panel said applications for the latest funding round would be open from September the 30th to October the 31st. Mr McCloskey added, "Charities, social enterprises, community and voluntary groups, parent councils and other third sector organisations will be eligible to apply for activity covering April the 1st, 2025 to March the 31st, 2026. As in previous years, an independent funding assessment panel will meet to consider applications. The panel will meet in late autumn to consider applications, with decisions advised to all applicants in December. 2 officers from the Council's Mental Health Directorate had recently visited the Gateway and 2 projects receiving support, he added. Demand for mental health service has soared since the pandemic, and the National Fund has remained static year to year, awarding £15 million to volunteers across Scotland. Over to Heather.
Readers striking snaps. All go with his camera in tow. Pensioner Joe Lucas retains a keen passion for photography, and it's a good thing for us as he shared a selection of his latest stunning snaps. Joe managed to get close-up shots of a wide range of stunning, eye-catching images, including birds flying over Lanark Loch and a bright moon over the skies of his home. His camera lens also captured an inquisitive-looking Highland cow at Campsie Glen and a luscious waterfall at Glenalva. Other iconic images in his collection included lovely landscapes showcasing Glen Arklet and Glen Finglas. Joe said, "I really enjoy getting out and about all over the country and get to see some stunning sights. But sometimes you are able to get a cracking shot on your own doorstep." To follow in Joe's footsteps and have your photos featured in the pages of the advertiser, email the images along with your name, where you are from, and details about their content to debbie.hall@reachplc.com. And along with the article are some of Joe's beautiful photos. There's one of a full moon and snow-covered mountain tops, a waterfall coming through trees and down onto the rocks, a beautiful loch with green-covered mountains behind it, a gull in full flight, a Highland cow sitting in a field, and 2 photos of the Queensferry crossing. Over to Margaret.
Final date for tax return looms. West Lothian households are being urged to check if they need to fill in a tax return ahead of 2 key October deadlines set by HMRC to avoid the risk of incurring a fine. Advice Direct Scotland is reminding people that they only have until October the 5th to inform HMRC if they need to register for self-assessment for the 2023-24 tax year. The National Advice Agency recently launched a free tax helpline and website, taxadvice.scot, which is backed by HMRC and is designed to help people understand their tax obligations. Another key deadline falls at the end of the month, with anyone who wants to file a paper version of their tax return only having until midnight on October the 31st to do so. People who are unsure if they need to register for self-assessment can check on the HMRC website or call an advisor at taxadvice.scot on 0800 756 3381. Registration can be completed easily online through HMRC, but anyone who fails to do this and submits their tax return late risks a fine. There are a number of reasons that people might need to fill in a tax return, including if they are self-employed as a sole trader and earned more than £1,000 during the tax year, people with total taxable incomes of more than £150,000, those who had to pay capital gains tax during 2023-24, and those who need to pay the high income child benefit charge also need to register for self-assessment. Those who earned any untaxed income, such as money from renting out a property, tips and commissions, and income from savings, investments and dividends, may also have to declare it by filling in a tax return. Scots struggling to understand their tax obligation or navigate their self-assessment forms can call 0800 756 3381 to speak to specialist advisors ready there to help them. And over to Peter.
Concerns over e-scooter use, an article by Debbie Hall. The future use of electric scooters will have to be addressed as part of wider changes to the way people travel in the future, one of West Lothian's new Labour MPs has said. The use of traditional scooters gets plenty of mention in the West Lothian Active Travel Plan, drawn up for the next 5 years. But the growing popularity of e-scooters, which can reach speeds of 40 miles per hour, and the way they are currently used is at odds with the promotion of safer, more active travel. Councillors regularly hear complaints about the use of e-scooters on public footpaths and roads as their popularity grows. Chairing a meeting of the Environment and Sustainability PDSP this week, Councillor Christine Sullivan, elected as MP for Bathgate and Linlithgow constituency in July, said that something would have to change. Referring to the use of e-scooters, Councillor Sullivan said, "There's something not quite right about them at the moment. I'm a wee bit concerned. We get lots of reports about them and regularly get complaints about them associated with antisocial behaviour, zipping along pavements and in and out of traffic. We know that they are only meant to be used in private land. She was responding to a presentation of the Council's 2024-2029 Active Travel Plan from Victoria Mungo, Development and Transport Manager. Miss Mungo agreed, saying, "It's an important point. Motorised scooters are not supported. The difficulty comes in how to police their use. Going forward, we would need to identify their volume as a transport mode." Councillor Sullivan said, "I know on the continent they are recognised as a valuable mode of transport and are used responsibly. Should we be looking at them as part of active travel? It seems a bit of an anomaly." And back over to Marsha.
West Lothian pensioners enjoy Sports Day with Can-Do Attitude by Davy Hall. West Lothian's elderly had a terrific time at an annual sporting event. More than 90 residents from 11 care homes across West Lothian came together to participate in the 10th Can-All Olympics, a lively afternoon of friendly competition and sporting challenges at West Lothian Leisure's Excite Craigswood venue, organised by the Excite Ageing Well team. The Excite Ageing Well initiative was established to promote healthy ageing by offering social, accessible activities that enhance both physical and mental well-being. The Can-All Olympics event plays a key role in the team's mission to encourage elderly residents to stay active. This year's event featured a variety of fun activities, including beanbag toss, penalty shootouts, hook-a-duck, and even sock pairing. The event was hosted in partnership with the West Lothian Care Activity Network, which brings together West Lothian's Community Leisure Trust, West Lothian Leisure, West Lothian Council, and the NHS to collaborate on activities that support and health and well-being of care home residents. Volunteers from Tesco Community Champions were on hand to serve teas and coffees, while fresh scones were provided by West Lothian's social enterprise, The Larder, which also contributed volunteers to ensure the smooth running of the event. Local charity Smile Adventure with Dementia, which raises awareness about the importance of staying active in later years, sponsored the medals and trophies. West Lothian Council data shows that the region is forecast to have the fastest growth in population of pensionable age in Scotland over the next 25 years, an estimated increase of 44%. This is twice the Scottish average, so keeping the elderly fit and active within the region is essential. Physical activity for older people bolsters immunity, slows the biological clock, and is a protective factor for disease such as cardiovascular disease, stroke, diabetes, and some types of cancer. It is also associated with improved mental health, delay in the onset of dementia, and improved quality of life and well-being. Ben Lamb, CEO of West Lothian Leisure, which operates 6 Excite venues, 2 golf courses and leisure facilities at 9 community schools across the county, said, "The Excite Ageing Well team has over 25 years of successfully making a significant difference to the lives of those who regularly attend our activities. The Can-All Olympics is a fantastic example of the many events and activities that take place under this initiative, and a great reminder that keeping fit and active can be a lot of fun. We're delighted that activities such as this at West Lothian Leisure have contributed to a significant £14.4 million in social value over the period April 2023 to March 2024. This figure underscores the positive social, economic and environmental impacts of our activities and highlights the significant contribution that our services provide to the well-being of our communities." And there are pictures of everybody having a great time. Over to Jessica.
Middle East vote leads to walkout by Stuart Somerville. Furious councillors have walked out of a meeting over a virtue signalling motion which initially asked West Lothian Council to fly the Palestinian flag above the council chambers, but ultimately only backed calls for a ceasefire in the Middle East. The composite motion agreed by Linlithgow's Lib Dem councillor Sally Pattle, Independent Andrew Maguire, the Labour group and the SNP group calls for an end to rocket fire in and out of Gaza, release of hostages with water, food and medicine to be supplied without delay, and negotiations toward a two-state settlement. Councillor Pattle agreed to drop an initial proposal to fly the Palestinian flag outside Livingston Civic Centre in order to win support from the Labour administration group in a composite motion. But Conservative councillors, furious that the motion was tabled amid a marathon meeting of the full council on Tuesday, said that they would leave the chamber rather than enter a debate. And local Tory leader Damien Doran-Timpson branded it virtue signalling. He took his group, which has a loose confidence and supply coalition with the minority Labour administration, out of the council chambers. The 4 members included the Deputy Provost Peter Heggie. Speaking from outside the chamber, Councillor Doran-Timpson called the decision to debate Palestine an insult to the residents and communities of West Lothian. He said that the current situation in the Middle East was appalling and devastating, and added this was triggered on the 7th of October 2023, and nearly a year later some councillors wanted to fly the Palestinian flag at West Lothian Council. He continued, irrespective of people's views on the Middle East, the public of West Lothian want their elected councillors to deal with local issues such as housing, RAC, potholes and other matters, not with virtue signalling by the councillors that brought this motion forward. Councillor Pattle told the meeting, I don't believe that we should stay silent, so rather than this being about virtue signalling, this is us as a council recognising a desperate situation and calling for peace. She said that what was happening is increasingly horrifying, and the undeniable truth is that the conflict is spreading. She added, I am so glad for all the elected members in this chamber. Now we have all agreed unanimously on this statement. I think it is really important. I know that as a local authority we have no power to influence these matters, but I also feel that something like this is too important. We cannot stay silent as the situation continues to worsen, and I have been so pleased to see the cross-party agreement, mainly that we have managed to get on this. I hope it shows communities across West Lothian that we stand in support of both Palestine and Israel, and our strongest wish is for peace in the Middle East and a two-state solution so that those lives shattered by this escalation can start to be rebuilt. Councillor Maguire, who seconded the motion, said, my extreme thanks to Councillor Pattle for making sure that this has happened. The cooperation that has been shown by Councillor Stafford, SNP Group Deputy Leader, has been fantastically well received. Also thanks to Councillor Fitzpatrick, Council and Labour Group Leader. There's nothing we can do to influence the conflict, but I think it sends a statement of intent that we as elected politicians want to see peace, and we want to see people live happy and prosperous lives, whether that's here in West Lothian or whether that's in the Middle East. There is a photograph accompanying the article of the 4 Conservative councillors, the 2 men and 2 women, who walked out of the meeting, and none of them looking particularly happy. Over to Heather.
Locals gutted as pub closes down. A pub in West Lothian has called its final orders as the owners made a heartfelt announcement to their customers. The Fork and Field bosses in Mid-Calder confirmed they closed their doors on Friday night after serving locals for 3 years. In a moving post, they explained how the brewery tried to find a successor after making the difficult decision they would step down due to increasing operational costs. The announcement, which was posted on Facebook, explained how difficult the decision was, but sadly, after 3 unforgettable years, continuing the business was no longer viable. The owners thanked their customers who had been left gutted. It reads, it is with a heavy heart that we announce the closure of our doors tonight after 3 unforgettable years of serving this wonderful community. Due to the increasing operational costs, we've come to the difficult decision that continuing is no longer viable. Although we extended our time here in the hopes the brewery could find a successor to maintain the venue for the community, this has not been successful. We want to express our deepest gratitude to each and every one of you who has supported us throughout this journey. They added, from birthdays to weddings, Christmases to baby showers, you filled the space with warmth, laughter and memories that will stay with us forever. Thank you for making these years truly special. We will always cherish the connections we've made and the moments we've shared. Thank you for being part of our story. Locals said they were devastated by the news, and one said they were very, very sad. It was such a great venue. And back to Margaret.
And that brings us to the end of part 2. Welcome back to part 3, which includes the quiz. Remember to listen in at the start of part 4 for the answers to the quiz. And over to Heather to do the quiz.
What is the technical nature for abnormally high blood pressure? Is it A, hypertension, B, angina, C, atherosclerosis, Which English quarter day falls on September the 29th? A, Lady Day, B, Michaelmas, or C, Christmas? Question 3. What was the surname of the French brothers who founded a tyre company in 1888? A, Dunlop, B, Michelin, C, Goodyear. Question 4. Who wrote the play Pygmalion? A, Samuel Beckett, B, George Bernard Shaw, or C, Oscar Wilde? Question 5. Which famous English school is depicted in Tom Brown's School Days? A, Eton, B, Rugby, C, Harrow. And question 6. Who directed the film Young Frankenstein? A, Ken Russell, B, Mel Brooks, or C, Nicholas Roeg? And over to Margaret.
And now back to general news. Fewer in line for the winter vaccine. Fewer people will benefit from the free winter vaccine programme which launched in West Lothian last week. While 72,000 people qualify for both flu and COVID jabs, some who previously qualified, including teachers, prison officers and unpaid carers, will not get vaccinated this year. Also excluded from this year's flu programme are those between 50 and 64 and household contacts of the immune suppressed who did receive the jabs in previous years. Frontline and non-frontline NHS and social care staff continue to qualify. The exclusions based on clinical evidence have been decided on by the UK Government's Joint Committee on Vaccine JCVI. These groups were added as part of the pandemic response, which is no longer required. Flu-only jabs began last Monday, but delivery delays means that COVID jabs will not start until the end of the month. The vaccine programme will run daily, 7 days a week, with a plan for 85% of those eligible to have been vaccinated before Christmas. Neil Ferguson, the General Manager of Primary Care and Community Services, told a meeting of the Integration Joint Board, the HSCP, will continue to deliver its programme within GP practices across West Lothian to promote easy local access for citizens. Additionally, a single partnership centre within Armadale will be used. Due to low uptake within community pharmacy clinics last year, West Lothian's Health and Social Care Partnership, HSCP, has taken the decision not to offer vaccines in these settings. Limitations on scheduling mean that those over 75 who receive appointments by letter may not be invited to their nearest clinic, though it will still be at a West Lothian venue. The National Call Centre will be able to alter unsuitable scheduled appointments. And over to Peter.
Rose are through in Cup. Linlithgow Rose boss Gordon Herd praised his squad depth as they came through a banana skin Scottish Cup tie against Lossiemouth, while handing out 2 debuts. Aaron Nicholson bagged a goal in his first start, while goalkeeper Matty Wallace made a key save at 0-0 in the 3-1 first win, with Laurie Devine and Jamie Allen also on the score sheet for Rose. That earned them a second round tie at home to Highland League Inverness Clachnacudden on October the 26th. Herd said, "We've played better, but it was cup football, so the main thing is that we are in the next round. It was a professional enough performance from the guys against a game Highland League side, which was probably a wee bit of a banana skin for us as well. It just shows you how good a squad we have, that we can bring these guys in, and it doesn't make much difference to our performances." On the draw, Herd said, "We're a good side at home. We've been excellent this season." Rose drew 1-1 with Gallifreydine on Tuesday, with Aaron Nicholson on target, and they travelled to Stirling University on Sunday in the Lowland League. And back to Marsha.
Hospital champs hailed for going the extra mile to support patients. Nurse and volunteers win at NHS Lothian awards ceremony. A dedicated nurse and 2 volunteers from St John's Hospital in Livingston have picked up awards for their outstanding care. Learning Disability Liaison Nurse Martha Knox and volunteers Stuart Wilson and Ed Thompson all won awards at the NHS Lothian Celebrating Success Awards. Martha picked up this year's Caring Champion of the Year award for her outstanding dedication to her patients. Martha is known by colleagues and patients for going out of her way to support patients with learning disabilities with their hospital appointments and procedures. Martha dedicates herself to being the patient's advocate, which is particularly important to those patients who may not otherwise have a voice in their own care and sometimes attended hospital without family or their regular carer. In situations where patients have been into hospital before, she visits them in their own home and helps to advise staff on the best strategies for helping a patient to get through their care with as little stress as possible. St John's Hospital volunteers also won this year's Voluntary Service Award. The award celebrates all of the volunteers who gave their time, energy and passion to support our patients, staff and community. Stuart Wilson and Ed Thompson won the award for befriending a patient who had been in hospital for 2 years and who was only visited by his mum. All being of a similar age and with shared interests, they would talk about their love of cars, motorbikes and world events. They played games and quizzes, and due to this support, the patient made an effort to get out of bed each day, get dressed and visit the cafe, canteen and gardens. The patient went on to start exercising with support of the physio department and was then able to move to another community-based facility. Stuart Wilson said, "Everyone in the NHS, including volunteers, works incredibly hard, so it's important to stop and pause to recognise our fantastic achievements." Professor John Conahan, CBE, Chair of NHS Lothian Board, explained, "The Celebrating Success Awards are an important event in our calendar. They are an opportunity to recognise and honour the people working across all areas of our local health service for their tremendous contribution in helping others. Our finalists were chosen by their fellow colleagues or the public because of the invaluable role they play. They have been shortlisted from hundreds of award entries and should be incredibly proud of their amazing achievements. The 2024 awards are the first for the NHS Lothian Chief Executive Caroline Hiscox, who explained, "The NHS is undoubtedly facing some of its most challenging times. However, it is incredibly important that we celebrate our collective achievements and honour colleagues for the exceptional things they have done. It was fantastic to see so many staff coming together to watch the virtual Celebrating Success Awards ceremony." And she added, "Thank you for making the night so special for all those who were nominated." And there's pictures of all 3 award winners smiling happily. And over to Jessica.
New council deputy leader picked by Stuart Somerville. West Lothian's newest councillor has been appointed deputy leader as a result of the general election. Susan Mannion has been selected to replace Councillor Kirstine Sullivan, who formally resigned from the position of Deputy Council Leader at a meeting of West Lothian Council on Tuesday. Councillor Mannion was elected in August as Labour Councillor for the Armadale and Blackridge ward. Councillor Mannion said, "I am privileged to have been nominated and selected to serve as Deputy Leader of West Lothian Council. I would like to thank Councillor Sullivan for her service in the role. I hope to continue her good work and ensure we do our utmost to deliver key services for the people of West Lothian and protect as many services as we can, despite the devastating financial position facing all councils." Councillor Sullivan has served as Deputy Leader since 2017. She remains a ward councillor in the Whitburn and Blackburn ward, where she was first elected in 2017. Councillor Sullivan was elected as MP for the UK Parliament constituency of Bathgate and Linlithgow at the general election held in July 2024. Councillor Sullivan said, "It has been my honour to serve the residents of West Lothian as Deputy Leader of the Council. I would like to congratulate Councillor Mannion on her selection and will do my best to ensure she is fully supported in the role." Lawrence Fitzpatrick, the council leader, added, "Congratulations to Councillor Susan Mannion. I look forward to working alongside her as we seek to protect key public services. I would also like to thank Councillor Sullivan for her immense contribution in the role over the past 7 years. West Lothian Council has 33 elected members representing 9 wards." And over to Heather.
As broadcaster Moira Stewart reveals she nearly lost money in a bank scam, Lisa Salmon learns 7 ways older people can avoid being duped. Older people are often more likely to be targeted by scammers, and veteran broadcaster Moira Stewart has revealed she was almost duped herself by a phone scammer. Speaking on ITV's Lorraine, the classic FM presenter said that despite being very aware of scams, it never struck me it would come by phone. The scammers contacted Moira on her landline, which she didn't question as she is ex-directory. During the phone call, the fraudster told former BBC News presenter Moira that money had been taken from her account by someone in collusion with staff at her local bank branch. She was advised to go to a different branch to resolve the problem, while the scammer stayed on the line, telling Moira that she needed to make a bank transfer. Fortunately, the bank's cashier realised Moira was being scammed and the call was ended before any money was taken. She has now teamed up with AbilityNet, which supports older and disabled people with using new technology, and BT Group to encourage older people to learn new digital skills and raise awareness of online scams, after their research found people aged between 55 and 64 face the highest number of scams. In addition, Age UK research earlier this year found 41% of people aged over 50 said they had been scammed in the last 5 years, losing an average of £2,022. And of those who lost money, only 22%. And of those who lost money, 22% never recovered it. Many scammers are sophisticated criminals, and it's an easy way for anyone to be tricked by them, warns Caroline Abrahams, who's the charity director at Age UK. Age UK is warning that older people, particularly those who live alone or with cognitive impairment, are at greater risk of becoming victims to scams. Financial losses are common and are bad enough, but being scammed can seriously affect people's quality of life and well-being. Many people who are victims experience a deep sense of shame, embarrassment, depression, social isolation, and a decline in physical health, with some even losing their independence. Lucy Walsh, a digital skills trainer for AbilityNet, agrees. Older people can be more at risk from financial scams, she says. Younger people are much better at deciphering information when it's sent to them digitally. They understand if something looks fake, whereas when older people see something in print, they believe it. On top of that, they have more fear of anything financial. They have worked hard, saved hard, and are very protective of their money. So when they see something that says, you owe us money, or you must pay us, or something dreadful will happen, it really tugs at their heartstrings. So how can older people get wise to scammers? I'll read on with Lucy's advice. Read things very carefully. Lucy advises people who receive any communication online or in the post to always read something carefully. Who is it addressed to? It should be addressed to your name or email. Who is it coming from? If something seems suspicious, it probably is. Are you expecting it? Scammers will usually send out a wide range of emails to numerous recipients referring to something quite common that will be relevant to some of them, such as a delivery. Lucy's advice is to slow down and consider whether you were expecting such a thing. So if it's saying there's a parcel on its way to you from Amazon, or we couldn't deliver something from Hermes, are you actually expecting a parcel? Beware of pop-ups. You may be searching on the internet or browsing social media and something pops up recommending you buy something or perhaps telling you something has expired and you click and buy it immediately. But Lucy says the really small stuff is happening with pop-ups and people see that it's only $1.99, for example, and they think that's not a great deal of money. But it's not about the amount, it's the second you hand over your bank details. That's it. Don't always believe what you see. Older people tend to be more likely to fall for a scam when they see something like an official logo they recognise, as opposed to just hearing somebody's voice on the phone, says Lucy. When people hear these kinds of things on the phone, they hang up, but when they see them, they're much more likely to believe them. Older people and younger people too just can't get their head around how official these things look. But it's very easy for scammers to cut and paste logos and pictures. Be careful what you click. If you get an email, a text message or a pop-up on social media and are asked to click on a link, be very wary, says Lucy. I think the most important thing for older people, particularly online, is to be very, very wary about where they're clicking. So with any of these blue links within emails, text messages, etc., that you click to go on to another platform, we say stop, come out of where you are and go onto the official website and check from there. Talk to other people. Don't keep your scam experiences secret. Talk to other people and warn them. Talk to each other. It's really important, says Lucy. When people start talking to each other, it unlocks so much. When they start talking, they learn so much from each other. And finally, just say no. Don't worry about being polite. Just say no and hang up if you have any suspicions at all, advises Lucy. Don't be afraid to say no. You don't have to be polite and listen. You could just say, no thanks, I don't want that. And now back to Margaret.
And that brings us to the end of part 3. Welcome back to part 4. We will start with the answers to the quiz and then we'll read some sport. And we've also got a couple of additional items. So Heather will give us the answer to the quiz.
Okay, listeners, here's the answers to this week's quiz. Question 1. What is the technical name for abnormally high blood pressure? And the answer is A, hypertension. Question 2. Which English quarter day falls on September 29th? The answer to that is B, Michaelmas. Question 3. What was the surname of the French brothers who founded a tyre company in 1888? The answer is B, Michelin. Question 4. Who wrote the play Pygmalion? The answer was B, George Bernard Shaw. Question 5. Which famous English public school is depicted in Tom Brown's School Days? And the answer to that was B, Rugby. And finally, question 6. Who directed the film Young Frankenstein? And the answer to that was B, Mel Brooks. And now back to Margaret.
Brock's turned down offer for a star after cup display. It's an article by Paul Thompson. Broxburn Athletic boss Steve Pittman has revealed star striker Errol Douglas is staying at Albion Park after they rejected a bid from League Two side Stirling Albion on Monday. The Brox hitman netted a hat-trick in Friday night's live Scottish Cup TV tie with Dalkeith, which Pittman's men won 4-0 to set up a second round tie away to Auchinleck Talbot later this month. Douglas has caught the eye with his impressive goal haul, which includes 9 strikes in the Lowland League in 11 games, off the back of firing the club to the East of Scotland League title and promotion last season. But he has opted to remain with the West Lothian outfit, and Pittman is delighted. He said there has been teams in for Errol and putting offers in, but he is happy where he is just now. Stirling Albion came in for him on Monday, but he is happy where he is. I think they have been looking at him for a while because he scored so many goals last season and he has started this season really well. It's good for us that he's staying. Credit to him and the club as well. We want him to stay and they're not taking any offers for him. The big man doesn't want to go. I think there's a lot of travelling in League Two, and having weighed up his options, he's happy where he is, and we're delighted with that. It shows what a good group of boys we have. They stick together. Errol just keeps on scoring. He has done well to get his hat-trick on Friday, but the boys that are putting the balls in for him have been excellent as well. He is there to finish them and he's having a good season, but he has to get the service to do well. Everybody is doing their bit. In Friday's tie, which was shown live on BBC Scotland, Douglas opened the scoring after 12 minutes before Kyle Bell added a second soon after the interval. Douglas completed his treble with 2 strikes in stoppage time. On the display, Pittman added, "It was good. I think it was in the first half of Dalkeith played well and kept us at bay. In the end, you've got to be happy to get through, especially on the TV. We were happy with our performance overall. We got through and that is the most important thing." On Tuesday night, Broxburn drew 1-1 with Lowland leaders Caledonian Braves with Nick Locke on target. They now host East Stirling on Saturday. Pittman said, "For me, the East Stirling game is a 6-pointer. We have got to win games against teams down there in the table so we don't claw anything back on us. You've got to win the games against the teams below you to keep you comfortable. With the good start we've had, the boys keep working hard and doing their jobs. We are quite happy with where we are at the moment, but every game in this league is difficult. We will need to be at it to beat East Stirling." And there's a photo of hotshot Errol Douglas smiling in his strip. And over to Jessica.
Better late than never. Shinnie backs himself to net more goals after stunner, by Paul Thompson. Andrew Shinnie opened his account for the season in stunning style with a dramatic late winner over Airdrie and says he backs himself to grab more for Livingston in their push for an immediate return to the Premiership. The 35-year-old is back at the Lions for a 3rd season, having initially been released by the club after their relegation in the summer, and his return really paid off on Saturday when he rifled home an unstoppable 25-yard strike in the first minute of stoppage time. It looked like the Lions would have to settle for a point after Airdrie's Aaron Reid had quickly cancelled out Stephen Kelly's opener in the first half. However, Shinnie climbed off the bench with 15 minutes to go and struck to help maintain their unbeaten start to the season, putting them within 4 points of leaders Ayr United with 2 games in hand. The final score was Livingston 2, Airdrie 1. Andrew said, "It's a great finish. It's better late than never. We had to grind it out, and it is a big 3 points. You try to come on and make an impact, and that's what the subs are for, to try and go on and win the game. Robbie Muirhead came off the bench in the last game and did it for us, and that's why you make changes. We've got a lot of threats going forward, so if we can lock teams out and be good defensively, then we'll definitely have chances to win games. I've had chances already this season, and there's been a few I would expect to do better with, so it is good to be getting in these positions. If you aren't doing it, that's when you need to look at things. I back myself when I get chances, and hopefully I can get a few more goals this season. You want to be playing at the top level, but it is a good, exciting league, and hopefully it will be an exciting season for us. I'm enjoying it, and hopefully we can put a strong season together to bounce back to the Premiership." Shinnie had started every league game for boss David Martindale until being benched on Saturday, but insists he is happy to make any contribution he can as one of the experienced men in the changing room. He added, "At my age now, I'm getting flung about everywhere. I'm probably an attacking midfielder, but I've played out on the left a lot of my career, where I was playing today, using clever movement and drifting inside to create chances or open up the game. I'm just enjoying playing football and influencing the game, so scoring a last-minute winner is enjoyable. I'm here to do a job wherever the gaffer puts me." We spoke about things at the end of last season, and the gaffer was open to bringing me back because of my experience, probably initially just to be part of the squad and add to the depth. But I have played quite a lot of games since I've come back. I was happy to come back, and I think we've got a good squad that has re-energised the building. The Lions now face Partick Thistle at Firhill on Saturday, aiming to maintain their unbeaten run. And the picture to accompany the article is of Andrew and one of his fellow teammates, who's obviously overjoyed that Andrew scored the winning goal. And over to Heather.
World Finals set for region. Cowdenbeath Racewell will host the Formula 2 World Final over the weekend of September 5th to 7th, 2025. The announcement was made last week, and there is now just under a year to prepare for welcoming some of the best drivers from across the globe. Whilst there is no racing at Cowdenbeath Racewell this weekend, Taunton Racewell hosts the 2024 Formula 2 World Final on Saturday. Gordon Moody will defend his Formula 2 World Championship from the front row, and those drivers who failed to make the top 10 in their semi-finals have a chance to make the back 6 rows of the World Final grid. Ministock's drivers were racing on Friday night, with Broxburn's Ben McClellan finishing 10th in a heat and East Calder's Caitlin Mitchell 7th in hers. McClellan finished the final in 9th place. And now back to Margaret.
And that actually brings us to the end of the Courier news. But we've got 2 other articles for you. One is a comment and one is an interview. And Heather will introduce both.
So, yeah, I'm a huge fan of Strictly Come Dancing, so I thought to mention to listeners about this year's Strictly competition and their first ever blind competitor, comedian Chris McCausland, who's dancing with the gorgeous Diane. The judges scored him 52 points as a combined total for the first 2 weeks. And Diane and Chris have gone through to week 3. I thought Chris and Diane were just brilliant. Chris receives an audio instruction in his training with Diane, and I think she's doing a brilliant job in her training. There is also audio available for this series of Strictly, which you can get on iPlayer. So I hope if you like dancing or you enjoy Strictly, that you can tune into that and enjoy what looks like a brilliant competition. The second item is that we are going to repeat the interview we did with Gregor Poynton, MP for Livingston, and Kirsten Sullivan, MP for Bathgate and Linlithgow, which we featured a couple of weeks ago, but sometimes people don't get the recordings every week, so it's just for those that have missed it. And Ray has been busy out interviewing other people, so listen in weeks to come for further interesting interviews with the visually impaired bowlers, Visibility Scotland, and a few others.
Hello listeners, and welcome to the first edition of a new feature which we will include in some of our recordings. You may recall that we recently asked you for suggestions for people or organisations that we could interview on your behalf. Since then, we've had a general election, and there have been significant changes in the MPs who now represent us in Westminster. We at Boomerang have been lucky enough to persuade the newly elected MP for Bathgate and Linlithgow, Kirsten Sullivan, to take some time out of her busy schedule and sit in the hot seat. So without further ado, we'll begin. Welcome, Kirsten. Thank you very much for making the time available to speak to us, and may I first offer congratulations on your election victory.
Thank you very much. I really appreciate that. It's been a whirlwind of a few weeks, but we're getting there, yeah.
Good. Could you give our listeners a brief introduction to you as a person? What's your background? Have you always lived in West Lothian? Are there any interesting snippets that our listeners could know?
Okay, so I have lived in West Lothian in Bathgate for the past, it's now 17 years, having moved from Glasgow. I grew up in a small village at the foot of the Campsie Hills, and then moved to Glasgow for my education. So I studied at Glasgow University, an undergraduate in politics and French, and then I studied a Masters in Business Information Technology Systems at Strathclyde Graduate Business School. And as you do, you come out of university with bills to pay and a little bit of student debt, so I went into financial services and I worked there until 2009 in a variety of roles until I stopped to have my family. And in 2017 I was first elected as a councillor for West Lothian Council.
Wow, that's an impressive resume. Thank you.
Well, I think none of us really set out to do what we end up doing. We often take many twists and turns, and I have had an interesting journey, which included a year as an English language assistant in France. That was a challenge and probably taught me that I didn't have the disposition for teaching. I would leave that to others. So yes, I've taken a few twists and turns to get to where I am today.
Haven't we all? I'm familiar with your name, obviously, from the articles in the West Lothian Courier, on which we depend for our news, which report on council activities. I would imagine that your new job is even more demanding. I can't really begin to comprehend the demands for you. Can you tell us what inspired you to make the move from local to national politics? And are you still a serving councillor as well?
Okay, I'll answer the second question first of all. I am still a serving councillor for the time being, and I've represented Whitburn and Blackburn since 2017. The new job, I couldn't have done the new job without the grounding that I've had in local government. I think local government is under severe pressure, has been for many years, and for me, a lot of the levers of change actually are national parliaments. So be that the Scottish Parliament or the UK Parliament in Westminster. I think local government has a tremendous role to play in people's everyday lives. It really is at the coalface of all the challenges that people in our communities face. But in order to address some of the underlying issues, those decisions and powers really lie in our national parliaments. And I think having seen a lot of the struggles of people in our communities, and indeed the opportunities our communities have, it really pushed me to stand for election to Westminster.
Thank you. It must have been very daunting walking into the Palace of Westminster for the first time. How are you finding being an MP? I would imagine there's lots to do and learn, and even simple things like how to find your way around and the various protocols that have to be adopted when you're actually in the chamber.
Daunting, yes, that doesn't even begin to describe it. And I think when you come from a very working class, normal background such as myself, it's an environment that you never expect to find yourself in, ever. And all of a sudden you're walking in corridors and you pass people that you've only ever seen on TV before, or you're sitting across the chamber from them and you think, wow, I'm actually here in this place that I've only ever seen on TV or visited as a tourist. It is daunting, particularly the responsibility that comes with it. I'm very aware that not many people get the opportunity to serve their community and their home in this way. And it's something that I take very seriously. And I think it's also important that we take the local into the national. And you might have picked that up if you've watched my maiden speech. It was important to me to talk about the communities across the constituency, from Bo'ness through to Blackridge and Blackburn. I won't name them all because my maiden speech did go on a bit too long perhaps. But yeah, it is a daunting place to be, but I'm very aware that I've been given a tremendous opportunity and responsibility by the people in the constituency. That there are some, as you say, some very everyday things that you have to get used to, such as finding your way around. And in my first week, I was adamant I was taking the stairs everywhere because I thought that's probably the best way, not to be lazy, but also to find my way around. But unfortunately, I had COVID in my second week. And so that saw me when I was back in my feet, taking the lift. So we will get back to walking everywhere because I think it's the best way to find your way around. But I won't be doing that when there's an imminent vote list that I actually miss my slot to vote.
Okay. Now, can you tell us, have you been given any specific roles in the new government, like PPS or memberships of any committees or anything like that?
No, so the committee structure is still being set up. So I have shown interest in a couple of the committees, but we'll need to see what happens. Obviously, we have hundreds of Labour MPs and many of them will be interested in the same positions. It's a good problem to have.
Yes.
So, and to be honest, still having my councillor role as well as being an MP, for me, I see that as two full-time jobs. So I'm working flat out at the moment, doing the best I can for my constituents in those roles. And that's where I want to focus at the moment.
Great. Thank you very much. And I appreciate you taking the time to actually come here and do this for us as well. Another question that I would like to ask is there anything specific in the Labour Party manifesto that would be of assistance to people who have a sight impairment or sight loss?
Yes, so there are a few things. So you may be aware that there is reporting on the gender pay gap that exists. There is a responsibility for large employers to report on their gender pay gap, and I think that's an annual report. The Labour Party has committed to introducing disability and ethnicity pay gap reporting because I think it's really critical that we understand where people with disabilities are disadvantaged in the workplace and that we work to address that. The government is also committed to supporting disabled people to work by improving employment support and access to reasonable adjustments. And again, we know that because someone may have a disability, that doesn't mean to say that they don't want to work. And it's important that they are given the support to be able to do that. It's important from an income point of view as well that they're able to do that. So those are just a couple of the commitments that the government or that the Labour Party made in the manifesto that I think will really be a great support to people with visual impairments.
Thank you very much. It's good to hear. Now, can you tell our listeners how they get in contact with you if they need to, and what kind of issues you can help them with?
Well, I can help in all sorts of issues, and you would not believe some of the things I've had land in my mailbox. Very quirky things, but important things, important to the people who are raising them. People can get in touch with me via email, so they can contact me at kirstine.sullivan.mp@parliament.uk. You might have noticed the concentration on my face as I tried to remember that accurately. I'm also having surgeries, so I've had 2 already, one in Bathgate and one in Lithgow. I will be having one in Bowness a week on Friday, and people can make appointments. And if people want to contact me beforehand and give me an idea of the issue they come to discuss with me, I can get the ball rolling, how we're perhaps able to progress that. I will have a telephone number for the office in due course, but at the moment we're still working to secure premises that are a bit harder to come by than you might expect. So I'm also on social media. I have a Facebook page and I have an X account. So I think it's really, really important that our elected representatives are accessible to people in a multitude of different ways. So people can feel free to get in touch with me about any issues they may have.
Fantastic. That's been really helpful, and hopefully there's no issues over security, though, with regards to the surgeries and so on.
We're very mindful of that, and that's why we're asking people to get in touch to make an appointment in the first instance. Sadly, we have seen MPs lose their lives in the past couple of years in the course of carrying out their democratic duties. And I think there's a balance to be had. We need to ensure that elected representatives and indeed their staff are safe, but we also need to ensure that democratic rights of people to access their elected representatives is upheld. So a tricky balance, but one I think we will navigate and will do to the best of our ability.
Thank you very much. That's been really helpful. Thank you once again for coming in to speak with us, and we wish you all the luck in your new career.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to come and speak to your listeners. Boomerang is a local organisation that I've supported over the years, and I'm delighted to be able to introduce myself. And again, if anybody needs any support in any way, please feel free to get in touch.
Thank you. Well, listeners, that brings us to the end of this first interview. We hope you've enjoyed it, and we will bring you another feature soon. Hello, listeners, and welcome to the second edition of our new feature, which we'll include in some of our recordings. We at Boomerang have been lucky enough to persuade the newly elected MP for Livingston, Gregor Poynton, to take some time out of his busy schedule and sit in the hot seat. So, without further ado, we'll begin. Welcome, Gregor. Thank you very much for making the time available to speak to us, and may I first offer congratulations on your election victory.
Well, thanks very much, and no problem at all. Very happy to chat.
Can you give our listeners a brief introduction to you as a person? What's your background? Do you live in West Lothian? Are there any interesting snippets that our listeners could know?
Great, yeah. Well, thanks very much for this. And yeah, I mean, my background, I was born and brought up in Falkirk, lived there. Sort of that was, born and brought up there with my family, and my dad worked in Grangemouth at a plastics plant. My mum worked in retail. Went to university at Strathclyde to study politics, not with any sense that this would end up being my career. I didn't even realise there were jobs in politics at the time, but it was just something I was interested in. From there, I got involved in the Labour Party. A friend of mine, a family friend who was already involved in the Labour Party, sort of said to me, "Look, you've got Labour values. the way to put them into practice is to get involved. And that's what I did, and, started pounding the streets. And I was much more kind of engaged with that, getting right and being local involved in campaigns across Scotland when I was at university. I was lucky enough then to be offered a job with Catherine Styler, who at the time was one of Scotland's Labour MEPs, in her constituency office in Dunfermline. And so I worked for her for a couple of years while I was finishing university and then coming out. And that was a great job because that was a bit of everything, from casework to diary to helping with speeches to helping research in the Parliament, media, and all the different kind of elements of what she did. And she was a fantastic member of the European Parliament and really hard working, and I learnt a lot from that. Then went on to actually get a job with the Labour Party running an election campaign. So worked in UK elections, Scotland, Scottish Parliament elections, and then also in Labour Party head office in London. I was offered a job there. Then spent a bit of time in an agency. So first of all, I went to work for Barack Obama's digital agency. So it was just after the 2008 presidential election, and they were setting up a London office, and they asked me to come and join them, and that was fantastic. So that's the point. I moved on from working for the Labour Party, and 5 years with them, and I worked all around the world. Worked in French presidential elections in India, Indonesia, Ireland. It's a bit of working in Italy and Sweden as well. Always on the sort of progressive side of things, and that was for political parties, but also worked for charities and trade unions and so on as well. Then, so that was fantastic. Really interesting 5 years. Then went on to work in more kind of corporate environment, I suppose, helping primarily companies help them communicate to their various the people that they care about. I went back to work for the Labour Party in that time in the UK general election in 2015 for Jim Murphy, who was leader in Scotland at the time. Jim became leader and kindly asked me to be one of his senior members of his team, and then went back into that kind of corporate environment, working for corporates and how they work, but then also worked for an agency, did a lot of international government work. Probably most interestingly, I worked in the Kurdish regional government in Iraq, so I was out to Erbil and helping support the Prime Minister's office there, rebuild essentially after the war in Iraq, but then also ISIS that then followed, and they were trying to essentially get sort of normal politics, normal governance back, and so we were helping them build a sort of Prime Minister's office, a foreign affairs team within that, and also a delivery unit as well. So how do you bring in the sort of functions of government? So helping there. So that was sort of my experience. And in terms of West Lothian, during that time, and that's why I got to know the local West Lothian Labour Party. When I worked for the Labour Party, worked on a number of campaigns. I covered West Lothian, worked in the by-election in 2005 when Robin Cook passed away, and I was organiser. So I knew the people in West Lothian well, and they knew me, and they were keen for me to be their candidate when the opportunity arose last year. So that's sort of maybe a bit of a rundown of my background and what I've been working on. So hopefully I can bring some of that understanding, both kind of on the ground of local politics, local campaigning, but then also try and make an impact with that experience in Westminster too.
Thank you very much. That's a wide-ranging and very varied CV you have there, and great experience. I was going to say that I would imagine that your new job is really demanding, but you've obviously been in some pretty demanding situations already. And you've already told us what inspired you to make the move into national politics. But it must have still been very daunting walking into the Palace of Westminster for the very first time as an MP. How are you finding it? I'd imagine there's lots to do and learn, and even simple things like finding your way around and the various protocols that have to be adopted when you're actually in the chamber.
Yeah, absolutely. It was interesting because speaking to some new colleagues, I think the first time some people they'd never been in the Commons before, even just into the building, and that was them arriving as an MP. I had been in quite a bit previously, when I worked for the Labour Party. I was in and out quite a lot, so I sort of knew the layout. But it was very different to go in as an MP and that role, and there are corridors you have access to that you didn't have access to before. So just in the sort of practicalities of it, there's certainly that. And, there's lots to learn like any new job. And it's funny, in one level, it's like any new job, there's new protocols and things to learn. But for me, it's, want to use this opportunity to further the campaigns that I'm interested in, but also on behalf of the people of Livingston constituency. And that for me is a bit that's most exciting. Of course, speaking in the House of Commons for the first time, as I did a few weeks ago, I had to ask questions. I'm not yet on maiden speeches. So this is some protocol. I went to do my maiden speech. I was looking to do it in a debate. I had emailed the Speaker's office, as you do, to give them a bit of a heads up that you're looking to get in. I thought I was on the list. I was on the list, I was told, but I sat there for 6.5 hours during the debate and didn't get called. So, but which is fine, and that's all part of it. And actually, it was interesting because I listened to a lot of maiden speeches during the course of that 6.5 hours in Parliament. But so you still have to bob to try and get called and so on. So you're learning. So that's part of it too for me. But I think for me it's about what I get done. Both here in the constituency, but then also in Parliament to make an impact in both.
That's wonderful. What a great story that is. Now, can you tell us, have you been given any specific role in the new government, like a PPS or membership of any committees yet? Or
So the committee, do not know to the PPS, the committees are coming up soon. I'm actually standing for election to be the chair of the Scottish Affairs Committee. So the way that all the select committees are elected by every member of the House, so all 650 MPs have a vote, and that will be elected in a couple of weeks' time when we get back after recess. So you have to be nominated by 15, I think it is, MPs, and then it goes to the whole Parliament to vote. So there's a sort of huge number of select committee chair elections about to come up, because each of them have come up. And the party that has the chairpersonship is determined in advance by essentially the number of MPs you have determines the number of chairs you have, and then it sort of works out between the parties. So I'm going for the Scottish Affairs Committee, so that'll be on the 11th of September. So I'll find out then whether I've been successful. But I'm keen to use that role. I think there's a real opportunity. I think 25 years of devolution. So I think I'd be keen to look at that, about how that's worked, where it's not, how the two parliaments, Scottish Parliament, UK Parliament, can work better together, UK government, Scottish government can work better together, and try and take some evidence around that to get a real sense of what's worked and what's not, and perhaps give a bit of a blueprint and some suggestions to go ahead, given we will have elections in 2026, to perhaps to the next government thereafter of how best to work. Because I think we've got probably the most pro-devolution government we've ever had, really, in this government, and I'm keen that to make that work and play a part in that. And then also in that role, I'd be keen to look at industrial strategy across the whole of Scotland, but also how that affects Livingston constituency and West Lothian, about how we can use a UK-wide industrial strategy to grow the economy in Scotland. So I think there's work to be done around that.
Right. And just as a side point there, you're interested in the two governments working together,
absolutely,
rather than total independence.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm for devolution. That's what I want to see. I think can work best. I think without trying to get too party political, I think the two governments have had probably political, but also they've had an interest to almost pick a fight rather than get around the table and get things done. And I hope that changes over the coming years. And I think it has, to be fair. I think, hopefully from a Labour side, we've been open to working with the Scottish Government. Keir Starmer's first trip out number 10 was to Edinburgh to come and see John Swinney's First Minister and sit down and try and work out ways to improve that relationship. But in fairness, I think that has been reciprocated on the Scottish Government side so far. Ahead of the King's speech, there were a number of bills which have impact in Scotland, and the Scottish Government were keen to work with the UK Government on some of those. So I think that's the way I think it should work, is, as a cooperation rather than, the sort of political fights and across the two, that it's really clearly just, you deal with that. It's just that in the real world, that's not how actually it works. Now, there has to be clarity around the Constitution, but equally, I talk about industrial strategy, growing the economy. Clearly, the UK Government has a part in that. Clearly, the Scottish Government has a huge part in that, and clearly the local councils do too. So how do the different layers of government work together in order to make a positive impact for the people of Scotland? So that's something I'm really seized of. Making devolution work for Scotland, I think, is important.
That's great, thank you. Now, is there anything specific in the Labour Party manifesto that would be of assistance to people with a sight impairment or sight loss?
Yeah, I think that there is in that, and I think part of what the government's trying to do in terms of accessibility more broadly is to support people with sight loss into work, and support and get the benefit system and the job support around people into work. And I think it's more across the board, people for sightless, getting people into work and creating an environment. And I know the employment bill that's about to to start being consulted on at the moment has got provisions in it to help people into work. And I think that's really important. Is how do you create an environment that allows people to get into work and contribute to society, give them dignity in work, and give them appropriate support. So that's something that's being consulted on now more broadly. So I think, as that goes through, I think we hopefully we can hear from people with the sight loss community as part of that to make sure that the legislation, that employment bill that's going through, has appropriate provisions within that bill to allow for that support and to work. So
okay.
that I think should be something that's it's very important. Piece of legislation that's just starting its way through now.
Okay, that brings us neatly actually onto the next point is, can you tell our listeners how they get in contact with you and what kind of issues you can help them with?
Of course, yeah. Well, first things first, email is good, gregor.poynton.mp@parliament.uk. Get in touch. I'm in the process of setting up an office just now, finding premises, hiring staff. A few members of staff started this week, which is great. I'll be holding surgeries all around the constituency as well. I've got a street surgery tomorrow in Fauldhouse. I'll be working my way around the whole constituency too. My website's in the process of getting updated to reflect the move from being a candidate to being an MP, but I'm going to try and get out as well and be proactive. So, please do get in touch. I'm hoping to meet as many people out proactively in street surgeries, different community groups and so on as well. So that's probably the easiest way to get in touch with me.
Email
is probably the easiest way to start. And in terms of, clearly, as an MP, you have responsibility for reserve matters. But, I am still picking up issues, problems, council services, issues that I can and I will certainly, as best I can, support across the board. So I think the best thing to do is get in touch with me with an email, outline your issue, and then I'll see what I can do to help. Because sometimes, I'm sorry to say, when dealing with kind of big agencies and departments, and a letter or an email from an MP does unlock things that perhaps other correspondence doesn't. It shouldn't be the case, but it often is. So the team I'm putting in place is there to help support people with anything. So do just come to me, and I'll let you know what I can do. I always feel we will always do whatever we can to help people. We can't always fix everything,
Yeah.
And we always try and be and the team and I have had this discussion. We want to be as open and upfront with people as possible and say, look, we can try these 3 things. They may or may not work, and we'll just be honest with people, because I think that's part of the job, that casework support that you can offer.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. That's all been really, really helpful. And thank you once again for coming in to speak with us, and we wish you all the best of luck in your new career.
Great. Well, look, thanks very much for taking the time. And, if there are issues that, your listeners or come back with, then please do get in touch.
Yeah.
I'd be more than happy to come and speak again.
So it was gregor.poynton.mp@parliament.uk.
That's it.
Excellent. Well, listeners, this brings us to the end of this interview. And we hope that you've enjoyed it, and we hope to bring you another feature soon. Thank you.
So that brings us to the end of this week's recording, and it's goodbye from Margaret, Peter, Marcy, Jessica, and Ray, our engineer, and me, Heather. Goodbye for now.